In part 1 of this video, we journeyed across continents, exploring the fascinating stories of retired Sud Aviation Caravelles gracing museum halls. But our exploration doesn't end there. Buckle up, aviation enthusiasts, because part 2 takes us even deeper into the world of preserved caravelles. We'll be uncovering hidden gems, caravelles with unique histories, some lovingly restored, others whispering tales of their past through faded paint and weathered exteriors. So prepare to be surprised, touched, and maybe even a little emotional as we delve into the remarkable second chapter of our caravelle preservation adventure. Our journey for preserved Sud Aviation Caravelles continues in Europe, with some examples that have been completely restored for static display, while other caravelles have been repurposed into new and interesting uses. The first stop in part 2 of our video is back at the French Air and Space Museum at the Le Bourget Airport near Paris, France. This aircraft's first flight was in early 1963 and was originally planned to fly with Air France. However, plans soon changed and this aircraft was taken up by the French Air Force and was chosen by French President Charles de Gaulle to be his VIP aircraft for the duration of his presidency, which ended in 1969. After this, the aircraft continued as a VIP transport in the French Air Force till the aircraft was withdrawn from service in 1980. From here, it was donated to the French Air and Space Museum. For several decades, it was displayed outdoors. At some point, this aircraft was removed from the primary museum and taken across the airport's grounds to an outdoor storage area. This is where it remains today, with some plans to eventually restore the aircraft and place it, without its wings, next to the two Concordes that are displayed indoors together. The next Caravelle has taken on a unique use after its career. Initially, the aircraft was delivered to Royal Air Maroc, the flag carrier of the Moroccan nation, in early 1961. The aircraft would remain in service with Royal Air Maroc for its entire paying career, which ended in 1976. Most of this aircraft was broken up at the Casablanca airport, with the forward section and cockpit being taken into the city of Mohammedia and placed next to the Mohammedia School of Hospitality and Tourism, where it can be seen from the street. Our journey continues across the Kattegatt Strait and all the way to Malmslätt, Sweden, and the Swedish Air Force Museum. This aircraft's early days were with the Scandinavian Airline System, or SAS for short, starting in 1964. 7 years later, the aircraft would be transferred over to the Swedish Air Force, and with the Swedish Air Force, this aircraft and the next Caravelle in this video were purchased from SAS and would be transformed into signals intelligence aircraft stationed at the National Defense Radio Establishment at the military airport at Malmen in Linköping. By the end of the 1990s, these two aircraft were retired from military service. The secret signals intelligence equipment was removed and this aircraft was donated for outdoor display at the aforementioned Swedish Air Force Museum. This next aircraft is one of two Caravelles owned by the Swedish Caravelle Club at the Arlanda-Stockholm International Airport. This aircraft would be delivered to SAS in 1966 and fly with the name Alrik Viking until 1971. Like the previous aircraft, this one would join the Swedish Air Force and become a signals intelligence aircraft until the late 1990s. Unlike our previous aircraft, this aircraft would be preserved by the local Caravelle Club at the Arlanda Airport, and the engines have been seen working as late as 2021. As a side note, if the engines have been operated since then, please let us know. We know some of our data is out of date. Back on the main part of Europe, we traveled to eastern France. This aircraft started life with Finnair in 1964, and this would stay this way until 1981. At this point, a company called Europe Air Service took possession of the aircraft, and when the aircraft retired, it was broken up, except for the forward and cockpit sections. This structure was transported to the woods just off the Corlier Aerodrome and is used by the local pilots as a clubhouse. This Caravelle has had one of the more varied careers, both as an airliner and in retirement. This aircraft started with JAT Yugoslav Airways in 1968. A decade later, this airplane was back in France with a small airline company called Aerotour, which only lasted from 1976 to 1979. Its third operator would be Corsair International, which today goes by Corsair. This aircraft's flying paying passengers career was done by 1985. For several years after that, this aircraft lay derelict at Epinal, but is now a two-room hotel with part of the airplane done in one of its former airline's decorative styles, and the other half done in another style. Still in the nation of France, we find a well-maintained Sud Aviation Caravelle at the Avignon Provence airport. This aircraft flew for Air France for its entire paying passenger career, from delivery in 1968 to its retirement in 1980. During its flying career, it was named both Comte de Nice and Guyane, with the airplane currently using the Guyane name. After retirement, it was owned and operated by the Chamber of Commerce and Industry for the city of Avignon, but since 1996, the aircraft was owned and operated by a group called Aero Club Vaucluse, which is a building nearby and has access to this airplane in a nearby Mirage F-1 fighter jet. This next Caravelle had one of the more varied careers of all the ones in this video. It had its first flight and delivery to Sterling Airways in 1968. This lasted till 1975, when the Central African Republic's government bought the aircraft for their own use. By 1979, the jet had been transferred to the Central African Airlines, of which we have no pictures of. The next year, the aircraft returned to Europe, flying for Europe Aero Service, or EAS for short. Between 1980 and 1992, the aircraft flew for EAS and Air City before going to its last operator, Air Toulouse, in 1992. Sometime after this, it was sent to the Ancient Wings section of the Aeroscopia Museum in Toulouse, France. The closest Caravelle to Asia is in the European portion of Istanbul, Turkey. Before it got to Turkey, this aircraft started in Switzerland with its first flight in 1970. The aircraft was delivered to a Swiss airline with a French name that has an acronym of SATA, and I am not even going to try and pronounce it, as one of 3 Caravelles that operated for this small airline. When this airline ceased operations in 1978, the aircraft was transferred to another Swiss airline known as CTA, or Compagnie de Transport Aérien. A decade later, in 1988, the aircraft moved south to serve with Istanbul Airlines, and around 1992, this aircraft was retired to the Istanbul Aviation Museum, located at a major airport on the European side of Istanbul, with a name, like our French airline before, I'm not even going to try and pronounce. Back at the French Air and Space Museum in Paris, France, we find another Caravelle, like our previous example, in the museum storage area across from the museum proper at the Le Bourget airport. This is another Caravelle that started life with the Danish low-cost airline known as Sterling Airlines in 1972. The aircraft then moved on to the French airline Air Inter in 1984. A few years later, in 1991, the aircraft moved on to Air Provence International, which lasted till 1995, which was a year before the airline ceased operations. Sometime after this, the aircraft was put on display at the Air and Space Museum, but this aircraft is now in storage, waiting future use. The next Caravelle is co-located in northern France with the former Air France Caravelle, registered as Foxtrot-Bravo Hotel Romeo Tango that we saw in our previous Caravelle video. Like our immediately previous aircraft, this airliner started life with the Danish airliner Sterling Airlines. It took delivery shortly after this airplane's first flight in 1972. A decade later, in 1982, the aircraft moved on to Air Inter and flew with them until its retirement in 1991 at the Paris Orly Airport. In 1993, the aircraft was moved north to become another instructional airframe for the technical school located at the Merville-Colonne airfield. The last Caravelle of this video can be found at the Aeroscopia Museum at the Toulouse-Blagnac Airport. This aircraft has the distinction of being the last Sud Aviation SE-210 Caravelle ever built. Its entire career was with the French airliner known as Air Inter. First flight and delivery took place in 1973, and nearly 2 decades later, the aircraft was retired in 1991 at the Paris Orly Airport. By 1993, the aircraft was put on display outside at the Aeroscopia Museum, where it remains to this day in 2024. As we conclude our exploration of Europe's preserved Sud Aviation Caravelles, a profound sense of respect lingers. These elegant aircraft, once gracing the skies, now stand as testaments to a bygone era of innovation and jet-age travel. Their presence in museums allows us not only to admire their design, but also to reflect on the evolution of air travel and the enduring human spirit of exploration. So the next time you travel by plane, take a moment to appreciate the advancements these Caravelles pioneered paving the way for the comfortable and efficient journeys we experience today. Check out our links at the end for more Caravelle-related videos, and if you wish, you can support us on Patreon or become a member of my YouTube channel by joining this channel's Coach Class membership level. Being either a Patreon or YouTube channel member will allow you the benefits of early viewing of new videos, and you'll get to help choose the next video. If you want to only provide a one-time payment to our channel, that can be done through the Super Thanks button below your screen. Patreon and YouTube channel membership allows greater support of this channel that will allow me to make improvements to this channel, as I would like to transition from using pictures on the internet to something more video-based. Thank you all for your support.